Welcome to PL Together Lounge Talks. I'm Adam Geller, founder and CEO of Athena, the video coaching platform. Today, we are talking with Heather Hill. She is an expert in math instruction. As a researcher at Harvard University, she's led very many studies. She's also potentially the researcher in the United States who's observed more math classrooms than any other researcher. Heather, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Adam. It's nice to be here.
Well, let's talk about the idea of observing, which I know you've done via video, and how that has kind of blossomed, if you will, into using the MQI framework, which we were talking about before, and turned it into a coaching tool. So I guess first tell us about the MQI Coaching Project, which kind of made the operationalize this idea a little bit.
Yeah, so with anything else in academia, this has like a little bit of a story behind it. So we were scoring a lot of video, including me scoring a lot of video using the MQI, which is a rubric that has 4 dimensions and really specifies for a number of different aspects of math teaching what good, better, and best look like in terms of, something like using a representation or getting kids to offer explanations during a math lesson. And I noticed, and our raters noticed at the same time, and the staff on the project noticed, that we were ourselves changing how we were teaching. A lot of our raters are teachers. And we started thinking at the back of our minds as we were teaching, oh, I really need to link these 2 representations. Or to get a better score on student explanations, I need to press a little bit more to get that kid to say what's in the kid's mind a little bit more clearly. So we noticed this and we decided to start experimenting with a coaching program. And what we elected to do was to use remote coaching via the internet so that people at Harvard, meaning the raters, these often were math coaches or math teachers who had been working for quite a while, project staff, and others could coach teachers across the country via video. So we use a remote camera in the classroom. Teachers capture their instruction, they upload it to Athena or another program if that's what the district wants. And the coach watches it, and the coach then assigns teachers 2 clips to watch of their own instruction, plus a clip that we have in our video library, which you can find at the Mqi Coaching Program at Harvard. And then the coach and the teacher have a conversation. And the goal is really that teachers are given a chance to self-reflect on their own teaching using our instrument as a sort of way of guiding their thought process. So for instance, when I said we have examples of good, better, and best instruction for very specific things like student explanations, teachers might look at their instruction and say, was that 3 or 4 minute clip a good, a better, or a best? And if it's not the best, how do I get there? Like, how do I plan instruction for next week that's gonna kick me up into that higher category of really getting kids to be doing more of the mathematical thinking in class? And so that's the sort of basis and the philosophy of the program. Video is really integral. Like, that's one thing. We've changed the program over the years, but we will not go away from using video because the power is really in having teachers reflect on their own instruction in a very guided kind of format.
And hearing you talk about that, one thing that was popping in my mind here is the videos make it concrete, right? That concrete representation, but the coaching model you were describing still offered so much of what educators often say they want to see in a coaching program, which is that kind of opportunity for self-reflection. So it's kind of like the video representations as the anchor for those other conversations, allowing not only you as researchers to have those conversations, but for educators and districts to start powering those conversations for themselves.
That's exactly right. Yep. And I would also add that the instrument is the critical piece. So it's teacher reflection, it's the video, and then having an external instrument, which teachers calibrate themselves to and are able to say, understand what good, better, and best looks like. Because a lot of people have talked about how there's no common language of teaching in the United States. So if a teacher comes to me and said, oh, I led a discussion in my class today, that could mean a variety of different things, some of which I would consider a discussion and some of which I would not consider a discussion. And so getting teachers and staff calibrated to sort of common ways of thinking about it is actually a critical component. And you really have to watch video and have teachers reflect on their own video to get there.
And you really brought forward the fact that video was a central part of the coaching process. A lot of folks are, constantly asking me like, okay, well, what have we learned about how to do this quote unquote process of coaching in a virtual way over a distance? So, I mean, there's a lot there, but maybe let me pose the first question and I can dig in after. Like, are there any big takeaways of this concept of virtual coaching in comparison to an in-person process?
So a couple things. What I just described, which is self-reflection on video, is different than in-person coaching, or it's different than coaching that is not self-reflective, in that the non-self-reflective coaching is often consists of the coach telling teachers to do stuff, right? And so that for our model is huge. And that's also why the video is so helpful, because it gives teachers time to go back and be able to rewatch what they have done, rather than they were in the moment, they were enacting instruction, and then the coach comes along later and asks them to reflect. It's harder to do that if you don't have the concrete evidence in front of you to say, oh, wait, I thought I was having a discussion, but only 2 kids were participating and they weren't saying very much. So that video is really, really critical there. Now I've forgotten the second thing I was going to say. So carry on and maybe I'll remember.
No, that's okay. I mean, if I can summarize that idea about the value of the video is really, in some ways changing the positioning of how the conversations will even be structured, where instead of the coach trying to convince the teacher of something, it's really about a discussion of the artifact that they can both share and talk about what are they seeing and what are the implications. The
And
other piece
thing was you asked about the in-person versus virtual. So this is another really interesting question that we don't know a ton about. The virtual means that our coaches are external to the school typically, and they're able to work with teachers in a non-evaluative manner. They also don't know the context of the school, which is both a cost and a benefit. Like, they don't know the constraints that the teacher is working under, but they also don't take excuses. They don't hear from teachers that, oh, Johnny was having a bad day. Like, it doesn't matter to our coaches that that's the case. They just want to help teachers get better. The third thing about the virtual situation, which I kind of like, is also our coaches don't get pulled into all of the other administrative stuff that goes on in schools. So often when you do job studies of coaches, you find that they spend very little time one-to-one coaching, and they spend a lot of their time leading grade level team meetings and doing logistics for state assessments and other, gathering curriculum materials. And so I think that the virtual coaching really keeps it focused on that one-to-one kind of routine and setup that we have going. So coaches, are pretty incented to get teachers to the table, and that makes a big difference to the coaching program.
It's interesting you kind of described this, you redefined the virtual coaching as the difference of the external versus the internal coach. But it feels worth, for me at least, to push a little bit, because I've heard some of the rumors, having been close to what you guys were doing related to Mqi coaching. Talk to us a little bit about even early indicators, or what you think people are feeling on this really sensitive question of, do you have to be in person with someone to have a positive and productive relationship?
I don't think that you do, but it does take a lot of effort for sure. So our coaches work pretty hard on establishing rapport with teachers and develop, over 8 to 10 coaching cycles, ways of talking with teachers, but it is one-to-one. So, it's a different situation than if the coach were working with 6 teachers all at once on Zoom, or working with 25 students all at once on Zoom.
I'm always looking for the wins that justify the things I'm passionate about, but I think that still is important, right? I think I think that matches, if somebody were to ask me, right? Like I would say, well, look, it takes deliberate effort to establish a relationship, whether or not you're in person. And so, maybe, what you're saying is that the coaches in your coaching program have established new ways to establish those relationships. And they've had to be more deliberate than in some ways relying on the crutches of being able to show up and
Yeah.
maybe
Chat
bring us
or
something sweet.
right. I mean, the other thing that we rely heavily on our program and rely on in our program are routines. So, routines are these repetitive, kind of expected things that happen, and they serve several purposes in our program. They take some of the cognitive burden off. Like we have a set of procedures, like the teacher and the coach watch a clip. The coach asks this question, the teacher answers. There's another question, the teacher answers. They watch another clip. So there's and then at the end of the coaching session, the teacher plans and the coach scaffolds that planning by asking a certain set of questions. And so that kind of organizes and targets the conversation that coaches and teachers have. But I think, and it reduces the cognitive load of those conversations, but I also think it reduces anxiety, because rather than the teacher feeling like the coach is going to unload on me at any time with a whole bunch of stuff, or I don't know where this conversation is going, the teacher is able to say, I know exactly what my role in this conversation is, and I'm able to meet that because I've done it before and I know it's coming and I can think ahead of time and I'm able to prepare for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You call, the value of the routines. A lot of people say they have the coaching cycles. And so
Yeah.
maybe what you're saying here is that just like any other model for coaching, there is some sort of formality to the way that the work gets done, even though the individual conversations may feel much more, um, it's not that they're unstructured, but they could go in a lot of different directions. So it's not a regimented coaching conversation, but it is a clear way that the cycle of learning will proceed.
Yeah, we hope that it doesn't feel regimented, but that it feels regular, that it feels comfortable for people to know how they're expected to participate and the expertise that teachers themselves bring into that conversation and how that's going to get used in the discussion.
If folks are interested in learning more about MQI coaching, how would they do that?
When I need to do that, I Google MQI Coaching Harvard. I don't remember the website.
No, I think that's a good way. Yes, I agree. That's a good way. That's how I do it too.
They can email me. I love getting emails from folks, and I'm pretty responsive to folks on the ground. So, and I can also pass on to staff members who work on this full time.
All right. Well, if you are listening or watching to this and you're interested in learning more about MQI coaching, go to your favorite search engine, type in MQI Coaching Harvard. You'll find out more about their coaching program. You'll find out more about Heather. If you're listening to this and you're wondering what did we talk about before this part of the conversation? What are we going to talk about next? Head to pltogether.org. Heather, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back to talk with you some more.
Great. Thanks, Adam. This was fun.